Welcome to Layer the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. For today's episode, the new Black Sabbath Volume 4 and Sabotage box sets. We are going to be discussing them, talking about what's inside them, the shows, the extra goodies, the remastered albums. So to do this, I have my Black Sabbath partner here with me, Darin. Darin is no stranger to the Layer. He's been here many a time. Darin and I do a Black Sabbath podcast together, Into the Void, a Black Sabbath podcast available on Spotify and Apple and all the streaming services. So we thought it would be fun today to talk a little bit about these box sets. They've been coming out, I don't know what, Darin, every 3 months or so we're getting one at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So there's plenty of videos out there with people doing unboxings, but just to give people a little feel, these are pretty hefty. The boxes are really nice here. They're very well put together. Here, if we take a quick peek at both boxes, come with a poster. They also come with a book. And I would say the books are one complaint I have about these boxes. They should have put a little string in here to help you get the stuff out, because it's a little tricky getting the stuff out.
Yeah, I agree. It is. You have to kind of dig into it.
Yeah. Each set comes with a poster and with a book. For instance, this is the Volume 4 book. It is 40 pages long. Cool pictures of advertisements from when the album came out, and some interesting little tidbits. I think if you're a hardcore Sabbath fan, I don't think there's any information on here you probably don't already know, but there's some cool reviews and quotes from reviews, and the pictures are cool. Just seeing advertisements, little snippets from news articles and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like a little time capsule from around the time the record was released, advertisements and some liner notes, things like that. Pretty cool.
Yeah. And all right, so both of them, like I said, come with the books, which are cool, a nice little thing. Here's the Sabotage book. It's pretty much the same type of format here, news clippings and stuff like that. I did think it was really cool in the Volume 4 book. They show you the original picture that was used for the cover of Volume 4.
Yeah.
There's the original
Snowblind.
The original picture there.
Yeah.
All right, so the remastering, who did the remastering on these, on the studio albums? Because each one of these boxes comes with some extra records. The Volume 4 box comes with studio outtakes and false starts, and it comes with a live album. Sabotage has the studio album plus a 3-record live album, but who did do you know who did the remastering for?
I don't. I know that these are different from the ones that came out on Rhino maybe a couple years ago, and all of those were done by Andy Pierce.
Yeah.
These were done by someone else, and I don't remember who it was. Although Steven Wilson from Porcupine Tree did the remastering of the outtakes on Volume 4. And it was kind of a waste of talent, I think, because I know he did some Yes remasters, remixes, and a really good Jethro Tull Aqualung.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why he only did the outtakes on Volume 4, but I mean, the recording quality of those was sort of subpar to begin with. They're certainly audible, but I mean, I don't know why it would be worth wasting time remastering those. You should have done the album, but the album sounds good. For Volume 4, I mean, there's so many different versions and remasters now. It's kind of like whichever one I guess you prefer. I know the original. I've always maintained that the original Volume 4 Vertigo UK release was the best one, and that was mastered by that was a Porky uh, Peckman. What was? Do you remember what his first name was? It
Yeah,
was
I know Porky because you can see it in the.
yeah, in the
Yeah, I don't
rendering.
remember the
George
original.
George Peckman, Porky Peckman. Um, that was much better. I thought much better sound quality than the Warner Brothers version. The first remaster that came out for Volume 4, I thought it was okay, not as good as the original UK, probably better than the Warner Brothers. And then moving forward to the 2014 with Andy Pierce, I thought there's some aspects of that I think were pretty successful, but there's other times when it's a little murky at certain points. Um, and I'm not sure with the Super Deluxe box set if they've really solved the problem with some of the murkier parts of the album, but I think overall, if your only experience with Volume 4 would be the Warner Brothers version, I think it's an upgrade. So
Yeah, I just checked. It's actually is Andy Pierce and Matt Wortham, and it is listed as a 2020.
okay,
So I guess Andy Pierce, he did do those remasters so many years ago. And I guess here maybe he put a fresh spin on it. When I first heard them, and I'll say that I think he did the remaster on the. I'm assuming he did the Sabotage one too because they have the same sort of sonics. I was a little taken aback at first. I didn't quite like it at first. I thought it was too like of a radical sort of EQ curve or something to it. But when I sat down with it and started listening, especially when the Sabotage one came out, before I got the box, I was listening to it on Amazon Music HD, which is above CD quality. And I was hearing things that I never really heard before. Like, for instance, in Super Czar, when the there was a super low voice, like way down at the bottom that I had never noticed before. On Volume 4, and then I went back and gave, the remaster of Volume 4 a listen, and there were little bass things that I had never noticed from Geezer before. Volume 4 is sort of an album, and even Geezer says this, it's one of his worst bass sounds on a Black Sabbath album. I wouldn't say it's terrible, but his bass is a little bit lost in that original mix. And this remaster, I think, adds a little bit of separation, little bit more separation between the instruments, and the bass sits a little bit nicer. I can kind of hear a little bit more of what Geezer was doing. So for me, it kind of won me over. At first, I was a little taken aback because I'm not quite Darin. You're the specialist on all the different vinyl versions. I really only have my vinyls, the Warner Brothers, and I have a couple different remastered, like the black box CDs. I have those the double discs that I think Sanctuary did so many years ago. But for me, it threw me off at first. But when I started listening to it, I started hearing some details and stuff that I had never heard before. But like you said, I think it would have been really interesting if Steve Wilson had done this. When I heard his
yeah,
name associated with this, I thought he was doing the whole thing,
yeah,
and I
me
was like,
too.
wow, because everything I had heard that he done, like the Jethro Tull stuff and the other stuff he's worked on, he
Yeah,
he he doesn't do anything so crazy that it turns off the people who grew up with those records, but he has a way of just bringing out more details and
yeah,
clarity and depths to the
yeah,
recordings.
yeah.
But all said and done, I'm digging these remasters. I like it.
Well, to me, I don't think that there's. I mean, I don't know if you've heard the UK Vertigo Volume 4, the first pressing.
No.
There's a lot more that versus the Warner Brothers. There's a lot more detail that's audible in the UK pressing through that original master. Um, and for those that don't know, there were two masters. There was the UK and then there was the US. And because of I think it was copyright restrictions something legal. They couldn't use the same masters from the UK to reproduce in the US, so they had to be remastered. I guess from the original tape. So there was the US master and there was the UK master. And the UK master, by and large, at least for the first four, are noticeably superior. Not to say that the US sound bad, but I just think that overall, when you go from the first album, Paranoid, Master of Reality, especially Volume 4, really the first four albums, I think there's a lot more detail that's audible in the UK masters. The US masters, I think, by comparison, sound a little bit less detailed, a little murky, maybe. Certainly,
yeah.
you know, I mean, if that's what you listen to, if those are the first versions you bought, you're kind of used to them. There's a dropout, a well-known dropout, where
War
the sound
Pigs, right?
dips in War Pigs.
Yeah.
That was only on the US version, you know. So the
Volume
UK
4, I think, had some little tape weirdness too. This is, you know, for people out there, this is where people who are really into this kind of stuff, you know, you hear these things and they're from the master tapes. A lot of times these little dropouts where just the channel, just sort of the sound drops for just like a second, or an instrument drops out. So
yeah, but basically, I'm overall, I'm pretty happy with the sound of Volume 4. I think it at least puts that. It's not exactly the same as the UK version, but it's pretty close. It's certainly closer than the Warner Brothers US version. So it puts it out there so that everybody can at least get a better sounding version of Volume 4. I mean, I think that these deluxe box sets are selling pretty well. I mean, and I think that's one of the reasons why we have the Sabotage. I think because the Paranoid did pretty well in terms of sales, and I know a lot of people that bought the Volume 4 that typically don't go in for box sets, but they bought it, and I think that, you know, they're becoming pretty popular in spite of the price. I mean, they're not cheap, but I think that it's worth it. You know, I mean, it's still, you know, it's quite a bit of money, but what you get in the package, you know, you get the book, you get some live stuff, you get the remaster of the original album, you know, poster. It's pretty cool. I mean, I have them all. I mean, I wouldn't not have them.
Yeah, but I think that they've been successful, and I don't want to ever say Sabbath won't repackage this stuff yet again, but it does kind of feel like maybe this is the final word on this stuff, because not only are you getting, and of course some people don't care for the remaster, they prefer other versions, but you're getting a fresh remaster of the records. Minor quibble in the Volume 4 box set, I wish they had put this is the album, I wish they had put the proper album actual cover on there, but they're sort of trying to follow a theme here where every album has one of the guys from the band. So what sells these things, I think, to somebody who may be on the fence about this stuff, or somebody that has already 25 versions of Paranoid or any of these albums, is the bonus stuff. So on Volume 4, you get 2 albums of what they call outtakes and new mixes, which is, you know, basically the band in the studio working on these songs. Now, depending on here, this one they listed as alternate takes, false starts, and studio dialogue. Depending on who you are, some people, like for instance, there's, you know, like 5 different takes on Wheels of Confusion. And yeah, there's a little differences between them. And for me, I kind of like this kind of stuff. I like kind of the fly on the wall in the studio while history is being made type of thing. I kind of like listening to the band like Supernaut. They started a couple different times. One time it's too fast and they slow it down. You know, there's all these different little things. And and you're hearing some things maybe you didn't hear on the studio thing. Bill Ward's drums are really loud on these outtakes. You can hear them kind of building this stuff. I find it fascinating, but I can understand how other people would think it's kind of like a one and done thing. You listen to it once, and why would I really want to listen to this over and over again? So
Yeah.
there was a small complaint some people had with the Volume 4 box set, that, oh, these studio outtakes. I find it fascinating. I love listening to the dialogue, them talking to their servers. One where Ozzy's like, oh, I didn't realize there's another verse there, or,
Mhm.
them talking amongst themselves and working on the songs. I find that fascinating and interesting.
Yeah,
It's,
I think it's cool to hear that, to have that the historical uh, archive, to be able to hear how some of these songs are coming together in the studio. But yeah, I would agree that it's sort of a one and done thing. I don't I listened to the whole thing when I first got it. I probably won't go back and listen to the outtakes again. It was entertaining and I enjoyed it while I listened to it, but to me it's like, okay, I've heard it now. I probably don't need to hear it again. But
yeah,
for a Sabbath fan, it's really cool. I mean, it definitely, and the sound quality, credited to Steven Wilson. I mean, it
it's
kind of
good. Yeah.
takes you into the studio in a way where you can hear like some of the ambiance, and like you said, you can hear Ozzy talking, and you can hear some of the background noises and things like that. It's really cool, and it's worth it to have it, to at least experience it one time. But as far as like return visits, you know, probably
Yeah,
not
that
something.
one's really sort of for the hardcores. But I think what sells these box sets, at least for me, and I know for a lot of the fans, is the live albums. So on Volume 4, you get what they call Live in the UK 73, which is the Live at Last album. But it has a couple extra minutes of soloing here and there. I think during the Warning, or not Warning, Wicked World. But this to me is really the gem of this package. I've talked about on my channel the difference between a remix and a remaster. This is a remix. They had the original tapes. They went in, and there is this sounds like a completely different show,
Mm,
almost sonically. The original Live at Last, it almost sounds like a mono recording. Everything's right up the middle. It's very dull, not a lot of clarity. This, you hear the crowd, the guitar is in one speaker, the bass is in another, the drums are really up front. What they did with this to me is worth it just for this alone. It sounds incredible. I love it. It's just I just think it's just great the way they remastered this. I was totally shocked when I heard it for the first time. I was just blown back. Like, for instance, you can't hear Geezer's bass at all on the original Live at Last. Here you can hear the bass. You can hear so much more. There's just so much clarity. The audience, there's an ambient, there's a vibe to it now.
yeah.
You can sort of hear like the room that they're in. You can hear the crowd, and so it feels like you're right there, listening to them in 1973.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that at this point, there's no reason to go back and listen to Live at Last now that we
Yeah,
have this. And I think if there's any reason to buy this super deluxe version, it's probably the remaster of the album is cool. It's okay. Like I said, if your previous experience is only with the U.S. version, then you'll definitely hear a difference with the box set version. But really, the big selling point for me is the live album. It's a good set that they use. I think was it the Rainbow 73, or was it a couple shows?
I
Uh,
think they originally said that they were going to pull this from before this box came out. I remember they were saying that there were three dates, I think, that were originally recorded, and I don't remember now. I remember early on them thinking that there were going to be two different. Something was going to be there were two or three songs that weren't on different versions from the Live at Last version. I don't know if anybody has sat down and actually A/B'd them to see if that's the case. And in fact, talking about it right now, I forgot that that was even a discussion at one point. Because I remember when they were announced this, I thought, oh, we've already got Live at Last, give us a different show.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling a little bit cheated, like, oh, this is a bummer. Everybody has Live at Last already. Well, I completely, that disappeared from my mind as soon as I heard this, because I was like, whoa, this is a completely different sonic mix. But I'm not 100% sure, you know, if there were some other songs pulled from those 2 or 3 nights that they recorded. And I know the Rainbow, I think, is one of the.
I'm pretty sure it's the same set list, the same sequence, track order as Live at Last, but the sound is overall improved. Like you said, you can hear more of the audience. There's more. You can hear Geezer's bass better. It just sounds like a proper live album. Whereas before, the Live at Last kind of sounded a little bootleggish, not horrible, certainly audible. I mean, you know, we all had it for years, and you know, we're used to hearing it that way. But when you hear this, the way that it's been improved on the in the box set, it's like, wow, yeah, this is really cool. You know, it's like a proper live album.
Yeah, we Darin and I discussed this when we did our Live at Last podcast episode. We kind of felt like it was a missed opportunity that Black Sabbath never released a proper live album when Ozzy was still in the band. That was the topic of one of my videos, missed live album opportunities. And this sort of makes up for it. This and what we're going to talk about in a moment, the show in the Sabotage box. These should have been the live albums that should have been released when Ozzy was in the band in the 70s. So released in this, you know, with this kind of sound quality, it would have, you know, it would have gone down as a legendary, you know, live album from the 70s, the era of the live album.
Yeah, and it's mostly, I guess, due to modern technology now, where we can take these, whereas they probably couldn't then. They probably felt, well, they sound okay, but they don't sound quite good enough to put out as a commercial live album. Well, now, thanks to technology, you can go and really fine tune these things and really get them to sound really good.
And it should be noted too that Live at Last, we go into this in our podcast if you want to listen for more in-depth on this. Live at Last was a unauthorized by the band recording. So it wasn't really technically a bootleg because their manager, they signed some papers at some point in their career with their former manager, Patrick Meehan, and he owned the rights to those recordings. So he put out Live at Last, but it had no participation from the band, no support from the band. At some point, Sabbath got the rights to those back because the Past Lives album that they put out however many years ago, that was there's stuff from Live at Last on there. But I'm guessing that maybe they just decided now, or they just got the actual real honest multi-track tapes, because this is, like I said earlier, a full remix. It sounds completely different. If you're hesitating because you're thinking to yourself, oh, Live at Last, I've already got it, or it doesn't, trust me, this is a different thing. You want to get it. It sounds great.
Yeah, you might not even know if you weren't told beforehand, or if you didn't know prior that it is the same record. With Past Lives, I mean, I think that was kind of a shoddy,
thrown together quickly.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I to tell you the truth, I think I've only listened to it a couple times. I'm disappointed with the treatment that they gave to the Asbury Park show, which, you know, as we'll talk about in a few minutes, I'm glad that they ended up, you know, giving it its proper release. But I mean, they took the songs out of sequence. They took certain songs out of it for the album. I think they inserted a false or an audience track over 1970.
Yeah, which made
Paris
it sound
1970.
really strange.
It's just kind of a mess. I you know, but anyway, I can say that they've pretty much corrected those mistakes with these box sets. I think at the time maybe they were just sort of testing the waters and seeing if there was a market for these,
Yeah. Yeah,
live.
when Past Lives came out, it was sort of early in the Sabbath reunion type stuff. I think that came out before 13 came out.
Yeah, it
So
did.
it was probably just like them trying to, right, test the waters, just get some product out there.
Yeah.
All right, so the live album from the Sabotage box set is Black Sabbath North American Tour 75. This is a 3-album set here. It's a little hard to open it up on the thing, but another minor complaint. The 3rd album is in the middle here, which is a little tricky getting it out. This, like Darin mentioned earlier, is the Asbury Park show. It's a famous bootleg. It was a radio broadcast, right? And it's a widely circulated bootleg. A couple of the songs appeared on Past Lives. Fantastic show, fantastic set list. You've got gems. This is right before Sabotage comes out. You hear Ozzy talking about our new album's going to be out any day now. You get stuff like Hole in the Sky, Symptom of the Universe, Megalomania from Sabotage. You get Killing Yourself to Live, Snowblind, Sabracadabra. The band Spiral Architect is on here, Rock and Roll Doctor, some riffs from Rock and Roll Doctor. You get the usual suspects like Iron Man and Children of the Grave and Paranoid. But this sounds like it's really early they haven't started touring really for Sabotage yet, or it's really early. Ozzys Voice sounds great. The band sounds fantastic. Iommi has some great, like there's a couple spots where the band jams and stretches out. Iommi just sounds amazing. The version of the song Black Sabbath on here is just killer, in my opinion. This is just an awesome show, and it's really nice. It's been floating around forever in bootleg circles, but it's nice to have the complete show from beginning to end, cleaned up a little bit, and all in one place.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I heard this probably the first time about 15, maybe 20 years ago, and I was really surprised because it was just something I stumbled on the internet, and I downloaded it and listened to it, and I couldn't believe the clarity of it and how good Ozzy sounded. There's a couple places where Ozzy, I think in particularly in Megalomania. So yeah, I mean, Ozzy's voice is really clear throughout pretty much the entire thing, and there's only a couple spots where he seems to kind of keep it in check. He doesn't want to go off key too much, so he kind of lowers his voice down an octave. But overall, I mean, it's I think most people will agree that Ozzy sounds really good, and it's in that period of time when I think his voice was probably at its best. So it's good that there's a live chronicle of that. And yeah, I mean, as far as is the package for the live Asbury Park, it's kind of curious why they don't call it Asbury Park. It's just the North American live album. I think everybody before it came out, and everybody was sort of, I think, talking about what show could it be. Well, it better be the Asbury Park, because that's probably the best one I've heard. And sure enough, it was. What I was kind of worried about was that by calling it North America Live, that they were going to take some of the Asbury Park and something else and kind of splice it together so you didn't get one complete show. I would prefer to have one complete show so you get the whole live experience of going song to song in the sequence that took place live. And they did. It's the entire show. And this is 3 records. I mean, it's a little bit, it's a lengthy listen, but it's certainly, it's well worth it. And probably, if there's any reason to own the Sabotage box set, the Asbury Park, the 3 LP live album is the reason to buy it. It's really good.
Yeah, I just looked. They don't, even in the credits inside the book, they don't tell you where it was recorded. They just say live from the Sabotage Tour. And it has the dates for the Sabotage Tour listed. And this Asbury Park was about 7, 8 shows into the tour, and the album was released like a couple days before they did this. So the album was really just fresh out there, for everybody. One minor complaint that some of the audio files have is that they believe that it was sourced. This version here in the Sabotage box was sourced from an MP3, which is disappointing, depending on where you stand on it. I think it still sounds good. The bootleg version that I have of the show, this sounds better than that. Some people's point is that there is a lossless version out there of this show. For those who don't know, an MP3, you lose some extreme frequencies, high and low. Thus, it's a lossy file.
Format.
It's a compressed format. And there is a lossless version of this show out there. So that is what is puzzling to people, that why didn't they take the lossless version, which is that it's understandable that maybe they don't have the original tapes for this because it was a radio broadcast, whereas the volume 4 show from that box, I have a feeling that, well, they had to have had the original real mastered tapes because they were able to change the levels of stuff. Whereas here, I think they EQ'd it and tried to clean it up the best they can. I think it still sounds really good. I only have the vinyl I only have the vinyl version. I have not heard the CD version. It sounds good to me. I don't have a problem with it, but it is something that's been being thrown around on forums and stuff like that. Some people feeling disappointed, and I get it. When you're paying this much money for something, why not give people the best sound quality or the best that you can give them? But I don't know, who knows? It doesn't really bother me. I think it's a killer show. I'm glad it's here. I'm glad it's officially and properly documented with these box sets. These live shows is just really filling a gap for me, for Sabbath, getting these proper live shows. The one with Volume 4, the one here with Sabotage, the Paranoid box has 2 shows in it. So I'm digging it. I like it. I think, again, if you're on the fence with the Sabotage box, the live show is totally worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah, getting back to the MP3 thing, I can't tell. Maybe there's people that can. Maybe there's people that think they can tell the difference. I don't know. To me, it just sounds good. And if I hadn't heard that it was MP3 source, I would not know the difference. So I wouldn't say for anybody to be discouraged by that. I don't think there's any evidence of that when you listen to it.
I agree. And it's even sort of debated, they're not 100% sure. Some people have done analyze the sound waves and stuff, but I really think that this is, again, if no one had mentioned it, I don't think anybody would have really noticed the difference.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to compare it to any of the bootleg versions that you have?
Well, I didn't actually A/B it, but I mean, I've heard it so many times. I can hear the differences. It's not as big of a difference between the Volume 4 box set live album and Live at Last. That's pretty profound. This is kind of like, and I think one of the versions I have of this Asbury Park show may be a lossless version. I know that I think it was created from WAV files, though I don't know the generation to begin with, but I'm pretty sure it was first generation, the one that I had for years. But there's things I like about that. When I was listening to this, there was things that were corrected that I'm not sure needed to be corrected. But I mean, listening to it from beginning to end, it's a good listen. I don't know. I mean, I guess whenever you get into these remasters, and it really depends on the person who's doing it. It seems like it's kind of a subjective thing. I mean, certain ways that, you know, the EQ is adjusted may not necessarily be right or wrong. Some things probably are more noticeably uh, in need of correction than others, but I think most of it is just sort of a subjective thing, what the person doing it thinks it should sound like, and I think that's kind of the case with this. But again, I mean, it sounds good. I mean, it's a good live album, and I think I haven't heard from anyone that was disappointed by it, you know, other than what you had said about people pointing to
Yeah.
it being an MP3 source. But like I said,
Yeah, and it's a lot like it's a great. There's separation in the instruments. The guitars in one channel, the bass, the drums are really lively. Ozzy's vocals right there. It's a nice balance between the instruments. It sounds really live to me. The energy of the band, they just sound like it's early in the tour. They've got a new album out. They're really excited to be playing these new songs. Some of Iommi's jamming on here. He plays some little licks and
yeah,
soloing things that you can just tell that the band was clicking, felt good. They've got a lot of energy. Ozzys Voice is there, so it's a show that I'm really glad is documented. The set list is totally killer. You know, you get a lot of songs that you didn't normally hear, that there aren't many other live versions of out there. So it's a killer set list. So it's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth it for me. All right. Well, what about one other thing we should mention about the Sabotage box? And I can't find my version of the album. I must have it somewhere else. I think you've got it there, Darin. You want to tell people about the cover on the album, the proper album?
yeah. Well, the first version of Sabotage released in the UK was on NEMS 1975, and the reason was, I mean, people might be under the impression that all of the original Sabbath from the UK were released on Vertigo, and that's sort of true. But Vertigo was on hiatus, I think, at this point. I'm not sure why. Probably some kind of a legal thing was going on, but it transferred over to NEMS and for this release, and also for uh, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. That came out on WWA, and that was sort of while Vertigo was being sidelined for whatever reason. But anyway, when this came out, I'm not sure if you can see from the little bit of the glare, which actually works to our advantage this time. There's a texture, and it's like a almost like a parchment or something like that. It's something that's pretty easy to overlook, but it's not. It doesn't have the texture on the US version. And I guess it was something that they wanted to underscore with the box set, because the box set version has the textured cover.
Yeah, which I
Which
think
is
is a
pretty
cool
cool.
little, yeah.
So they go to some length to try to give you the original experience. As you can see,
Yeah.
you see the texture. It's not exactly the same, but it's pretty close. That's pretty cool. I mean, you know, they also did that in the 10-Year War box set.
Okay.
Um, in fact, all the Sabbath albums that are in that, and it goes from the self-titled to Never Say Die, all of them have the original packaging, including Master of Reality has the box, you know, the cardboard box with the
Oh,
poster
wow.
and everything. Yeah, so they're like exact replicas of the first UK pressings. But inside the US to have this with the textured cover, it's pretty cool. And also, when you open it, it's not exactly like the NEMS version, but it's black.
Yeah.
You know, so they tried to keep the
Vibe of it. Yeah.
the vibe, the original look of the album intact, and pretty cool.
Yeah.
Points
All
for
right.
detail.
That's right. All right. So there you go. There's Darin and I's thoughts on the new Black Sabbath Sabotage in Volume 4 box sets. Oh, yeah. And we forgot, Sabotage also comes with a 7-inch single of an Am I Going Insane radio edit. And what's on the B-side?
Hole in the Sky looks like that's the A side, and
Oh, Am I Going Insane is the B
Going
side.
Insane Radio. Well, at least as far as the cover goes. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the front cover.
yeah.
Clear.
I actually haven't listened to it yet, but it's an
No, and
it's
I
another little.
probably won't listen to it. But it's cool to have. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a neat
another little bonus thing.
little bonus thing.
So, all right, there you go. There's our thoughts on the new box sets. I think it's safe to say that we like them. We feel that they're worth it. Maybe they're not flawless, but if you're a Sabbath fan, I think that there's enough. Even if you've got these multiple versions of these albums, I think there's enough in these box sets to warrant getting them. If you're a Sabbath fan, there's enough little nuggets between the live stuff and the outtakes and stuff like that. And I know Darin as well as I were really looking forward to seeing what they do with some of the other sets, like the Technical Ecstasy set, or what they're going to do with Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and stuff like that. So
yeah, it's curious that we haven't touched on like some of the more popular albums. I think Master of Reality would probably be one that I would have thought would have been released before Sabotage, but I guess they're going in even numbers, and then they're going to go back and do the odd number releases. I'm not sure why, but we need the first album, we need Master of Reality, we need Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, at least. Beyond that, I don't know if are they going to do Technical Ecstasy. I think you heard something about
yeah,
that.
I heard that that they are.
Yeah,
There's going to be a Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die box. They're going to be done by different people, I think, but hopefully. I mean, come on. It would be really disappointing if they just ended it with the first 6 Black Sabbath albums, like the T-shirts that says.
there's only one you can trust.
Yeah, there's only 6 box sets you can only trust yourself in the 6 first Black Sabbath box sets.
I hope not, but I can honestly see them only going up to the first 6 because of the.
Because then you're really getting into the hardcore Sabbath fans. As much as I love Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die.
Yeah, and you have to worry about selling them too. I don't think that. I mean, I think they've grown in popularity over the years since they were released, but I don't know that they're going to be as big as sellers as Volume 4.
And if they didn't do box sets, which they've already put out new versions of Mob Rules and Heaven and Hell, and they didn't give those the box set treatment, which tells me that they thought, okay, these aren't going to sell enough for a box set. If they think that about Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules, then certainly they're thinking the same thing for Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die. But who knows? We have our fingers crossed. There's plenty of stuff. There are shows out there that would fit nicely in the Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die boxes. If it comes out, certainly me and Darin will be here talking about it on here, because we do like those albums, and we are going to go back, I think, as these come out. It'll be fun to talk about them. So all right, there you go. Let us know in the comments down below. I know there are a bunch of subscribers out there. I've heard you guys talk about these box sets and ask me about them, so I know that some people out there have them. Let us know in the comments down below what you guys think of the box. Let us know what you think of the remastered versions of the records. Let us know what you think of the live albums that are in there and the outtakes, and just the overall packaging in general, and what your thoughts are on some of the upcoming ones. So let us know in the comments down below. I'd like to thank Darin for joining me here at the Lair. And until we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.